Hello, everyone. So this session is more on one of the key product that we have, which is interaction workflow. And I'll be taking you over the IVR version of interaction workflow. So when we started off, we predominantly used to develop applications using the IVR development tools. And it was pretty much writing codes and then deploying in web application servers, going through a testing phase and then deploying in production servers, right? But during the due course, we heard from customers and we identified that there was a need of having a tool where customers or business users themselves can manage these call flows by just dragging and dropping, or rather changing the call flows with themselves without having a dependency on the vendor. And that's where the journey of interaction workflow began. It has come up a long way in terms of the version that you're looking at right now. So it's a completely browser-based tool that you're looking in front of you. Each of the boxes that you're looking at are call flows, and each of the call flows from an IVR standpoint has hotlines and DNS mapped to themselves, right? In terms of when you make a when the customers dial in a hotline and they come into this interaction workflow, and based on the flow that is configured, it executes the flow, right? Each of the box has also different colors, which means specific things. For example, the light blue is based on the status. It says it's draft mode. A dark green is approved. Light green is saved. So there is a life cycle of the entire call flow, right from the place of draft to saved to either being approved or to being rejected, right? It also has other key features in terms of maker checker as well. Version controlling. So every time a call flow is approved, the application creates a version number so that users can go back to a previous version if something doesn't work out in the new version that they've created. It also supports maker checker. For example, if I make any changes to the call flow, a checker or an approver needs to ensure that all the changes are correct in place. And then they can click a button and either reject the changes that has been made and it comes back to me, the person who made the changes, or it can go to directly into an approved state where when the caller dials the hotline, the changes will start getting reflected to them. Till then, the new changes will not get reflected. And that's where we have this maker checker concept, right? As I mentioned, each of these hotlines, each of these call flows has maker DNS and checker DNS. And the customer call only lands on the checker DNS, right? So the maker DNS are all internal numbers for or test numbers to dial for the users so that they can verify their changes if they are working fine or not, right? There's also a possibility where you can create new call flow. So if you click on this new call flow, it gives you a template for you to start filling up. And then the global configurations also goes into that place, so you can start defining these call flows. What I'll show you today is one of the call flows, one of the sample call flows that I have. The very first node in the call flow is a DNS node, which basically when you open it up, you see all the global configurations which are available over here, right? For example, if you see over here, there is a maker DNS, there's a checker DNS, there's a call flow name, which language does this supports. So if you have multiple hotlines and each of the hotlines supports a different language, you can even define which languages these hotlines support. You can even define your global configurations. For example, what's your main menu options, what's your previous menu options, what's a repeat menu options, right? And these global menus or global options will automatically be tagged to newer menus which are getting created. And then you can enable, disable them and override them in specific menus. All the global parameters that you see in a traditional call flow in terms of inter-digit timeout, first digit timeout, whether bargain is allowed or not, what's your invalid prompt, what's your no input prompt, what's your max price prompt, what's your agent announcement prompt. You can define it at a global level so that each node that you drag and drop later on, they override, they basically inherit all these functionalities from the global node, which is the DNS node. But it also gives you the flexibility that you can go and override these parameters at any node at whatever time you want to do that. Towards the right side, if you notice, is a palette which contains multiple nodes. They are the traditional nodes that you'll see in an IVR. For example, there's a menu node, press 1 for this, press 2 for this. There's a prompt and collect where if you want to collect certain digits from the customer, for example, account number, service number, TPIN, OTP, you can drag and drop this and collect these details from the customer. an announcement node to be played out. So if you want to play out an announcement node, whether it's a static announcement or whether it's a dynamic announcement, that can also be played out right over here. Condition node, the platform also does support dynamic rules. So you can play out or draw the entire call flow based on business rules, based on how the call flow should proceed. For example, if you want to play a specific phrase only on a specific day when the iPhone is launched or when the Christmas or New Year's are there, you can define those rules. Or based on customer profile, you want to give a different menu, or in the same menu, you want to enable, disable options. So you can do that all based on business rules. It also supports breaking up of the call flow into multiple tabs. So if you see over here, there's one tab. I can go and create another tab saying prepaid, right? Prepaid. So you can go and create an entire different call flow in this specific tab, and that call flow can be then connected using entry and exit connectors, right? So you can define that over here. This is predominantly to ensure that the entire call flow that you have is not configured in one single page. It's broken down into multiple segments, which is easier for management and maintenance. Right? So I created a tab called prepaid. You can, for example, the first option is for a prepaid customer. You can come over here and assign this prepaid node over here, right? Prepaid, right? And if the customer presses 1, they automatically go and get routed to the specific node. So it's basically breaking up the entire call flow from a usability standpoint. If you open up an announcement node, in the announcement node, it does supports applying phrases. So for example, you can choose this and you can define phrases. You can either select from a specific location and upload the phrase file over here, or the application also does support TTS, but it also supports TTS in English for now. And you can give your text over here, select the TTS voice talent and convert it over here. So the list gets added up over here. Or if you have a voice recorded talent, you can click this, click on upload and new phrase, right? And add that over here. So these phrases gets added over here. You can add phrases in different languages as well. Say, for example, you have three phrases to be voiced out in English and 1 phrases voiced out in Thai. You can add them over here. And if you see there's a language called Thai, it gets added. So if a customer selects English language, only 3 phrases will be voiced out. If a customer selects Thai language, only 1 phrase will be voiced out. You can even change the order of the phrase. So say, for example, you want to voice out this phrase first and then this phrase. You can change the order by just dragging and dropping, right? So that gives you the flexibility in terms of how you want to define these parameters. It also does support dynamic voicing out of dynamic content. For example, if you have an account number which has to be voiced out, an account number has to be voiced out in a digit format. You can click this and it will get voiced out as well, right? So it does support, you can have content in session variables, and those session variables can be played back either as an amount, date, digit, time, mobile number, custom. You can define them over here, right? So by and large, whatever you want to do in an IVR from a voicing out standpoint, you can achieve everything in an announcement node. If you want to play this announcement node under specific conditions, like a business rule, you can define them over here. Say, for example, you want to voice this out only during morning from midnight 12 to morning 12, afternoon 12. You can, and for these days, you can set this rule over here. So these phrases will be only voiced out if the customer calls during that time, right? So that's an announcement node. Menu node. So all the parameters that I mentioned over here are overwritten over here. So basically, what's the main menu option? What's the previous menu option? What's the repeat menu options? What's interdigit timeout? You can even configure what the initial prompts are there. If it's a DTMF based menu, or if it's a speech based menu, or if it's both, right? And the menu options also shows the options that you're connected to. So if you see over here, there are 3 options to this menu: option 1, option 2, and option 3. Those 3 options can be seen over here. And you can put phrases individually on each of the legs of this options. You can even create rules and assign rules to them. So say, for example, this specific option should be provided only to prepaid callers. So you can create a rule and tag it over here so that these options will be given only to prepaid callers, not to somebody else, right? So you can create even a dynamic menu, or for some reasons you do not want to give this option, you can just click the save over here, and the second option will be grayed out. So during the call, the second option will not be given to the caller. So you can enable, disable options based on static content, based on static decisions that you take, or based on dynamic content or dynamic rules that you would want to define. You can do that as well, right? So that's more of a menu and announcement node. And to add anything to the call flow, all you have to do is just drag and drop this and assign it over here, right? And when you do this, when you want to add a fourth option to the menu, you just click over here and you assign it to the new node, and it automatically attaches option 4, right? But for some reason, the new option that you added, you do not want to have as option 4. You want to make it as option 8, for example, or option 7. You can just come and change this over here, and it will take it as option, new option, right? New option, and it'll start taking it as option 7, right? So that's, it also provides you ability that you can go and define what DTM option needs to be configured in a specific menu. Prompt and collect node. So as I mentioned, menus are predominantly press 1 for this, press 2 for this, whereas prompt and collect is where you're collecting a set of digits, right? Classic example would be collecting a mobile number, right? So you can define those attributes over here. This is predominantly what we do from a reporting standpoint. Collect mobile. And once you've collected that, you can even assign it to a specific variable, and you can use it at any point in the call flow at a later stage, right? So you can create your own session variables and you can assign them, and then you can do some sort of operations on top of it. If the mobile number starts with 6, if the mobile number starts with 9, you can go and define that, right? And how much digits you want to collect. Say, for example, you want to collect anything between 9 and 10. So the node that we have created will automatically assign grammars of 9 to 10. So anything the user enters less than 9 will automatically be not considered as a valid input. The valid input will be only considered between 9 digits to 10 digits, right? The same thing, interdigit timer and first digit timer are also available over here. The prompt and collect configurations, from a prompt perspective, all the invalid prompts and the no input prompts and max tries are already overridden from the global node. If you want to change them, you can come and change over here. You can even add your initial phrase over here. Please key in your 8-digit registered mobile number, right? So you can upload that phrase over here, and you can define in which language you'd want to upload it over here, right? And if the customer or the user fails to enter the valid number or does not enter, what is the fallback action? Do you want to route the call flow to a main menu? You want to disconnect the call? Or you want to branch out to a specific option and you want to take it to a different behavior? You can create an exception leg, and you can define that over here as well, right? So that's completely configurable in terms of if a customer or if a caller does not satisfy the rules that satisfies his digit entry from a rule standpoint, you can define what behavior should be given from a call for treatment perspective, right? Coming to the conditional node, before I get into the conditional node, I'll show you some of the business rules, how do you configure it. Over here, there is a place where you can set in all the master data. For example, rules. I'll dwell into the rules a little bit. So we do support 4 types of rules, where one is time-based rules, date-based, date range, and operational rules, right? What I mean by time-based is, for example, you want to give a specific phrase or a specific menu option, or you want to give a specific treatment from morning 5 to 6, from morning 9 to evening 6, post that the call center is closed, from Monday to Saturday. You can define that attributes over here, right? So you can create a rule name, you can define your start date and end time, and you can define whether it's for all days or whether it's for only for Tuesday and Friday, right? So you can define those attributes in a rule, in a time-based rule. Something similar if you don't want to have a time, but you want to have for a specific date. For example, if you know your iPhone, the new iPhone, which is going to launch, which is going to happen on September 13th, you can define a date-based rule, and on that date, the customer calls, give them a different treatment or ask them to do something else, right? Date range. So if you want to wish your customers Happy New Year from 25th of December to 2nd of January, and after that, the rule should automatically stop. You can define a date-based date range rule, right? So between that date to this date, this rule will start getting affected. Operational rule. So if a customer's profile is a prepaid caller, if customer's mobile number starts with 6, or whatever rules that you would want to execute based on dynamic variables, which can come from even backend systems, you can define that over here, right? So you can define your variable one, whether it's a string, and we support all these parameters, all these operations types. So it's basically writing like an equation, and the application or the system will execute this equation, and based on the output, it can go and define what treatment should be provided to if the rule gets executed successfully, right? For example, there is a rule called check CLI or check mobile number starts with 6, and I've configured with if Annie starts with 6, right? So if I have to apply a rule or a condition node of behavior, I can do this over here. After collecting the mobile number, I apply a condition node. I go inside the condition node. I define it's called check Annie, right? And I tag that rule over here, right? When I click that rule, you can check CLI starts with 6. It's just a parameter that we define, and we tag the rule over here. When you click the rule, you can go to the operational rule, and you can go and search for the rule that you created right now in terms of Annie starts with 6. So you can probably example this, right? Once you've set this rule, so this is how it will happen. And the conditional node will exit out with 2 conditions, right? One is if the CLI starts with 6, or if the rule doesn't match, it'll go to the default leg, right? So if the CLI starts with 6, you might want to give them a different behavior. Or if the CLI doesn't start with 6, you might want to take them to a different route, right? So it's even writing conditional logics based on dynamic content retrieved from the backend can be configured using this interaction workflow. So that's something that is inbuilt within the system itself. Coming to agent node, again, one of the crucial point in an IVR is transferring, right? Or it's ensuring that the call gets transferred to the right agent or the right skill set, right? So for example, if you want to, after you announce this, you want to transfer this to a live agent, what we do is we create an intent out of it, right? So say, for example, you define the node ID, the node description over here, live AGT underscore 100, live agent. And you want to define an intent saying if the customer is calling for balance, right? Once you do that, you can even define what is your last agent prompt, please wait while you transfer your call. That gets automatically overwritten from your DNS node. And once you do that, once the customer comes up over here, it picks up the intent called balance. And that's where we have the intent master page, right? Wherein you can define your routing mechanism. So say, for example, your channel is voice, your DNS is the new DNS that we created for this specific call flow. What is your hotline segment if you have different segments for hotline? If you have a customer segment called prepaid, right? And the customer's language is English, and the intent is prepaid, right? For example, or live agent, right? Balance, right? And you want to transfer it to a specific VDN, right? When you do this, what happens is the application, the moment it reaches to this specific node over here, it picks up this call flow, it picks up the DNS, picks up the intent, and then transfers it to that VDN, which can go to the communication manager. The communication manager can then identify the skill and route it to that skill, right? So that gives you an avenue to even route your call flows to specific exit points to ensure that the call gets routed to the right exit node, right? So that's more on the interaction workflow. Again, there are a lot more attributes to this, as I mentioned. One of them is the rules that I showed you, the intent master that I showed you. We also have the session master. So whatever data that you would want to create and assign it into session, you can actually come in and create your session variables over here. For example, you want to collect the phone number from the caller, and you want to validate the phone number against the host, you can create a session variable. And once you collect the phone number, you can assign that collected phone number to these session variables. And then you can use it at any point in the call flow and for your usage, right? One of the other key parameter over here is the phrase master. So if you see over here, there's an icon called phrases over here. So what it does is whatever phrases has been created in the ecosystem, in the call flows for you, so those phrases will be visible over here, and you can then export it out. And then let me just show you this real quick, right? You can export that specific call flow. You can export those phrases over here, and then you can export it as a CSV and give it for voice recording, right? So all the phrases that you see can be exported into a CSV and then pushed out. Right? The application also is based on different roles. There are 3 or rather 4 different roles. One is a maker role, one is a checker, and one is a previewer role, right? What each of them means is, maker means as an user, I am only supposed to make changes to the call flow, but I do not get an authority to approve the call flows into production, right? From a checker standpoint, if I'm a checker, I do not have access to make changes to the call flow. I only have access to make either approve it or reject it with relevant comments, right? If I'm a previewer, I cannot do either of them. I cannot make changes. I cannot approve the call flow, but I can only view the call flow, right? I do not have any other option. So when I edit the call flow, I can make changes to this because I am a maker. I can go and edit as much as possible. I can create multiple tabs, create the call flow, and once I'm done, I save the call flow and then push it to approval. One of the key features that we have designed in this application is, once you've developed the call flows, you have to pick up the phone and you have to dial and see how it sounds like. Rather than doing that, what we have done is you can just right click over here and you see multiple options, right? You can click play and it basically plays out the entire IVR by even providing a small DTMF keypad, right? And it's not necessary to start from the top itself. You can come and start from anywhere you want. Right? And you can even click this DTMF option so that it goes and selects and the node starts blinking over there, right? So it even goes to the specific options and you can drive through the entire call flow using the specific tool itself, which we call it a simulation, right? So it helps you not to, for example, if I'm a business user, I do not have a phone to test, but I'm still designing the call flows. If the configurations are not done in the PABX, I can still go and test the call flow using the simulation tool. There are other key parameters as well. For example, if I want to take in notes, so included global configurations, right? So it helps me to take notes. It's like sticky notes. I can actually go and take notes as to what changes I've done and where these changes are for. So I can take notes into the system. And once I've done, I can save these call flows. It helps if multiple users are working on the same call flow. So if I'm working on this call flow right now and tomorrow my colleague comes in, he can actually go and see what are the nodes and what are the reasons I have attributed these configurations to the specific node, right? Once I've saved the call flow, I can even send it to approval because I've made these changes to this. And please approve, have added a new menu, right? So the comments are important. The reason being because we track it from an audit standpoint. And once it's sent for approval, now if you go and look at your dashboard and look at the status of the call flow, this call flow becomes orange in color, right? It's because it's sent to approval, right? The reason why we do that is to ensure that whoever makes changes to the call flows are audited for. There's a detailed audit trail report for that. And the checker who's going to check this call flows can also look at the comments, can also look at what changes were made in the call flow, and then they can go and make and approve those changes, right? Let me show you once by logging into the checker node. And what happens is the checker can actually go and see all the nodes which are there over here, but they can actually see what changes were made to the call flow from a call flow standpoint, right? Let me just quickly show you that. Okay. Now, while I show that, I probably have to create a checker user. But while I show that, one of the key parameters that we have also, one of the key feature that we have designed in this specific tool is also to have a live view of the entire call flow itself. And that's where we have created the session dashboard. So as and when you make a call flow, each record will be listed over here. And when you click on this record, it actually shows the customer journey, the entire journey of the specific call, what the customer took, including what time the customer entered into this specific node and what time the end customer exited out, right? If you click over here, it even shows the details of each of the node, along with whether the call was transferred to a specific VDN, whether the customer was authenticated, what was the customer's identification number. If you have an identification number called like a mobile number or something else, it gets listed out over here, right? So this gives a detailed view of what happened to the specific call. It's basically like a customer journey, right? Which is a real-time customer journey view, right? We also have a more historical dashboard view, which you can go and check and tag which call flow you want to look at the data for. And once you have done that, and once you click view, it actually shows you the data in terms of historically. So say, for example, you want to see what's your hourly volume looking like across these hotlines. So for each of the hotline, it will show you what is the call volume. And at each hour, what the spike has happened, right? If you want to see a cumulative view, you can just click this and it will show you the cumulative view across all hotlines. But if you want to see very specific to each hotline, just click this and it'll give you different hotlines the call has come in for, right? Same holds good with language. So for each language, for each hotline, how many customers have selected English, how many customers selected Thai, you get to see that options over here, along with authentication modes as well, right? So if you have customers being authenticated, whether it's authenticated, TPIN authenticated, OTP, or non-authenticated at all, across hotlines, you get to see the details over here, right? Either you get to see an hotline specific view or a pie chart view, where you can see in the cumulative view, or even in a pie chart view, you can actually see it as a multiple ring where you can see based on hotlines what a customer's got authenticated and non-authenticated with, right? Which were the top 5 menus that got accessed by the customers, you get to see that, and you can even define the threshold value. Say, for example, my threshold value is 30 over here. So if you go and change this threshold to, say, for example, 10, so it will go and, or rather 5, I would say, it'll actually highlight all the nodes, or rather all the menus which crossed more than 5 times they were accessed, right? And across these hotlines, you get to see that details over here. So which are the top menus that were getting accessed, which are the top modules, the self-service modules that you will get that were accessed. You even get to see a word cloud of it. In this case, there was only one. For example, if you see a word cloud of this, you get to see which menus were getting accessed the most. The more the weightage, the more the bolder the menu or the font size is bigger, that means that menu was accessed the most, right? Transfer intent, calls, how many calls were getting transferred to which VDNs, to which intents. As I mentioned in the IW call flow, you can actually define these intents, and based on the intents, it comes to VDN, and then it goes to a skip. So it shows this hotline got transferred 26 times to a tax officer, and how many times this specific hotline got transferred to which VDNs, right? So this basically gives you a holistic view of how your hotlines are performing, and you can even select only specific hotline, or you would want to select only all the hotlines, right? You can even go and select multiple dates over here, whether it's Jan, whether it's you can go and select your multiple days and months over here. And once that's done, you can go and select the days that you want to see the data for, right? So this is more of the historical KPI dashboard view. So what I wanted to cover was predominantly on the IW part of it. in terms of how the IVR works, the UI works, and the backend engine is where it drives everything from a configuration standpoint. So whatever you configure gets tagged into the engine, and then the engine processes out and gives the responses to the customer. So it has some of the key features. Just wanted to highlight them. One is make a checker. It ensures that the right changes are made in production. Version controlling. You can move back to an older version anytime you want, or to a specific version. It has a detailed audit trail mechanism to ensure it is audited for whatever changes goes into the system, and a simulation mechanism where no need to pick up a phone and dial the call flow, but the simulation can basically help the caller to run through the call flow just by clicking play, and then it simulates the entire call flow, right? So that was more on interaction workflow, the IVR tool, where gives you the flexibility to drag and drop and create the entire call flow along with business rules and all the standard IVR nodes that you can find out. Right? So yeah, that was the interaction workflow for IVR.